Tonight on KGW News, a heartbreaking burden. Parents forced to say goodbye to their daughter.
We're not supposed to do this. This is not something that we're supposed to do as parents, you know, it's supposed to be the other way around.
How they're taking comfort knowing her death will help others. Plus, a school district bailed out of a budget shortfall by the same organization they say caused it. Then, skating rinks and basketball courts.
There's a significant pent-up demand.
The ambitious plan to overhaul Portland's Expo Center. And later,
you guys ready to go to the North Pole?
Yeah! Hope on board a fantasy flight, taking dozens of deserving kids to the North Pole. Thanks for joining us here at 11. I'm Christine Pitawanich. We begin with a decision today to block a merger between Kroger and Albertsons. It's a move that impacts shoppers and workers at hundreds of stores in the Northwest. A judge in Portland sided with the FTC, which argued the merger would lead to higher prices and less competition. Alma McCarty joins us in the newsroom with a closer look. Good evening, Alma.
Yeah, Christine, not only did U.S. District Court Judge Adrian Nelson block the merger, so too did a judge in the state of Washington this very same day, determining it to be unlawful.
I conclude that Washington's Consumer Protection Act prohibits the proposed merger of Kroger and Albertsons because the effect of that merger may be to substantially lessen competition in Washington.
In Seattle and in Portland, two judges presiding over two separate cases halted the Kroger-Albertsons merger, which would have been the largest grocery merger in U.S. history.
So in short, the court blocks the merger.
The grocery giants first proposed the merger back in 2022, claiming that it would help them compete with retailers like Walmart, Costco, and Amazon. As part of their plan, the companies were prepared to sell off nearly 200 stores in Oregon and Washington. In January, Washington Attorney General and Governor-elect Bob Ferguson filed an antitrust lawsuit in King County Superior Court. A month later, the FTC and other states' attorneys general filed a federal suit in Portland, asking Judge Adrian Nelson to block the $24.6 billion deal until an in-house administrative judge at the FTC could consider the merger's implications. Regulators feared that combining the chains would be bad for consumers and for workers. On Tuesday, following a 3-week hearing earlier this year, Judge Nelson sided with the regulators and granted a preliminary injunction, writing, in her opinion, any harms defendants experience as a result of the injunction do not overcome the strong public interest in the enforcement of antitrust law, especially given the difficulty of disentangling a premature merger. For some, the rulings were cause to celebrate.
Those rulings are a vindication for antitrust enforcement.
Locally, the president of UFCW Local 555 called Judge Nelson's decision a victory for protecting fair competition and safeguarding jobs and benefits of grocery workers in our communities, and said this outcome reinforces the importance of putting people over corporate profits. However, both Kroger and Albertsons expressed their disappointment, arguing the merger would lower prices, increase wages, and protect union jobs.
Okay, so Alma, this has been ongoing for a couple years now. Does this all mean a possible end to the merger talks? What comes next here?
Well, the federal judge's decision only pauses the merger. The companies could still pursue it. Both Kroger and Albertsons told me they're evaluating their options. The FTC is expected to go through an administrative proceeding as well, also seeking to block the deal. Christine?
Alma McCarty reporting for the newsroom for us. Thank you so much, Alma. Let's get you caught up on some of tonight's other headlines. Today, a judge approved a $1.25 million settlement in the case where Clark County deputies shot and killed 21-year-old Kevin Peterson Jr. It happened back in 2020 during a failed drug sting. Initially, the Clark County sheriff at the time said Peterson shot at deputies first, but investigators later said there was no evidence Peterson fired his gun. The deputies involved were cleared of criminal wrongdoing, but Peterson's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit that led to today's settlement. And this afternoon, police got into a standoff at Camp Withicum in Happy Valley. Investigators say a man with a gun who was having an apparent mental health crisis barricaded himself alone inside a building on the National Guard base. It's located just off Highway 224 and east of 205. After several hours, the situation ended with no injuries. The man was not arrested. Instead, he was taken to the hospital for evaluation. To the Jewel School District now in Clatsop County, where class was canceled for the past 2 days after a 13-year-old was arrested, accused of sexually abusing another student. District officials would not comment on the investigation or say anything about what happened, but they did say they're now evaluating security and changing the way students move around the school. Classes will resume tomorrow. Meantime, the Corbett School District is trying to save itself from a $3 million budget hole. Tonight, the school board took a big step toward that goal. They voted to accept a $2 million loan. But as Catherine Cook explains, it's also tied to some big conditions.
District officials tell us this is a compromise. The $2 million loan pencils out to be interest-free, but it's coming from the Multnomah Education Service District. Corbett officials tell us that MESD played a big part in their financial situation, and by taking this loan, they agree not to sue them.
All in favor? Aye.
A unanimous vote from the Corbett School Board Tuesday night. They agreed to a $2 million emergency aid loan from the Multnomah Education Service District, a giant step out of the district's $3 million budget hole.
This loan will make it to where we are solvent.
Superintendent Dr. Derek Fielkovich says the district will have 8 years to repay the loan. He says they learned about their $3 million deficit last summer after their new chief financial officer uncovered 3 years' worth of accounting errors. He says the district's former accountant made those errors, someone they contracted through the Multnomah Education Service District. But rather than sue MESD, Fielkovich says they agreed to the loan.
We have agreed to not pursue any litigation.
How hard was that decision?
It was not difficult in that it was the best decision for our students and for our district as a whole.
Several parents agree, given the circumstances.
The amount of angst in this community about do we have a school is so high.
You know, everybody's very worried, so we're hoping, some positive things come from this.
If it's interest-free, $2 million is not a small amount to loan.
Fielkovich says technically the loan comes with a 2% interest rate, but he says as part of the deal, MESD is refunding the district the cost of 1 year of accounting services at $196,000 to cover the interest.
We compromise so that we can move forward.
Even with the loan, 8 district employees are still losing their jobs. That includes 1 full-time teacher and another reduced to half-time. For many here, it feels like a painful scar.
I'm not even remotely sure how we would start to fix this, but I know that we definitely need to work as one to move forward.
In Corbett, Catherine Cook, KGW News.
Right now, there are efforts in motion to make the Portland Expo Center a sports tourism destination. Here's a look at the proposed changes to the North Portland site. Instead of 3 huge meeting halls, the new facility would have 2 ice rinks, shown in blue on this map, with an indoor court right next to them. The courts would host things like volleyball and basketball tournaments, and the center would still host many of the events held there now. A work session on the project took place today. Jim Etzel, the CEO of Sport Oregon, which works together and to bring sporting events to the Portland area, says the new plan will bring in a lot of money.
It is going to have significant visitor and economic impacts that is phenomenal for hospitality industry, food and beverage industries, which is a lot of that is small businesses.
The Expo Center site was also once a temporary holding facility for Japanese Americans forced from their homes during World War II. The new plans call for a courtyard that honors that history. The project is estimated to cost around $300 million, and at this point, it's unclear how it'll be funded.